more about your goals for your trip to Asia, where else you may be going?
I have a very good relationship with President Xi of China. We're having disputes on things. They're paying us a lot of money, tremendous amount of money in tariffs, and they'd probably like to have it be less, and we'll work on that, but they have to give us some things too. Right now, China's paying a tremendous amount of money in tariffs, like they've never paid before. You know, they paid a lot during my first administration, my first term. Now they're paying an unbelievable amount of money to the United States. They probably can't pay that much, and I'm okay with that. We can lower that, but they have to do things for us too. It's no longer a one-way street.
Yeah. What would you lower?
Imagine working your whole life to build something, only to watch a decision made 1,000 miles away threaten to wipe it all out. We're patriots. We love this country, but overnight, we went from having a line of buyers to our soybeans to having silos full of beans we can't sell. You feel powerless, like watching everything you've built just sit here and rot, and there's nothing you can do. Welcome back to the Spin Cycle. If you guys like what we're doing here, go ahead, subscribe, share this video with a friend, and if you feel so inclined, sign up for memberships down below. Thanks again. In 2018, a trade war launched promising to protect American industries. But for soybean farmers across the heartland, it kicked off a devastating chain of events. The threat of their livelihood wasn't a foreign pest or a season of bad weather. It was a line item on a policy document. This is the story of how those policies sparked a catastrophic response from China, brought a cornerstone of American agriculture to its knees, and left thousands of family farms fighting for survival. To really get what happened to them, you first have to understand China's role as the #1 buyer of U.S. soybeans.
Where to, do you think?
Depends. I mean, we'll have to see what they want. One of the penalties we have, and because they're sending in fentanyl, we have a 20%, as you know, a 20% tariff on that. But they'd be paying about 157% tariff, which is, you know, record-setting type tariff. I don't want them to do that. I want to help China. Not looking to hurt China, but they have to give us things too.
Sticking with China, Mr. President, on soybeans, are you confident that you'll be able to get it?
I want them to buy soybeans. One of the things I want is China's going to buy soybeans. I want China to stop with the fentanyl. Very, you know, normal things. I don't want them to play the rare earth game with us.
But you want them to, but do you think they will make a deal on soybeans?
I do believe, yeah, because otherwise I'm not going to make a deal. No, I want them to buy. Our farmers have been boycotted by China as a negotiating point. I don't want that. Our farmers are great, and in particular our soybean farmers, and I want them to start buying soybeans at least in the amount that they were buying before. And I believe they'll be able to do it.
For decades, the relationship was pretty simple. American farmers grew soybeans, and China bought them, and they bought a lot of them. In a normal year, China purchased more than half of all U.S. soybeans exports, a market worth over $12 billion. They were, by a huge margin, the most important customer these farmers had. That all changed when the Trump administration started hitting billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods with tariffs, trying to fix what is called unfair trade policies. China didn't just take it, it fired back with its own targeted strategic tariffs. And its #1 target, American agriculture, especially soybeans. Why soybeans? Because it was a weapon aimed right at the American heartland, a key political base. Beijing's retaliatory tariffs on U.S. soybeans climbed, pushing total duty rate to around 34% in 2025. This made American beans prohibitively expensive compared to alternatives from South America. Suddenly, a bushel of American soybeans was fundamentally more expensive for a Chinese buyer than one from Brazil. The market, built on decades of trust and reliability, was thrown into chaos overnight. So how did the geopolitical chess match actually feel on the ground in the fields of Iowa, Illinois, and North Dakota? For farmers, it was the start of a nightmare.
So this farm was bought in 1887.
The Comegee brothers have been in the soybean biz for a long time in Hartley, Kent County, and they say it has recently gone from tough to tougher.
Yes, it is a good business. Yes, a little tougher now with the tariffs.
John is also on the board of directors of the American Soybean Association, and while his farms sell lots of its soybeans and corn to Purdue to feed their chickens, he has watched as American farmers' biggest by far soybean customer, China, has walked away from them.
China used to buy 1 out of every 3 soybeans produced in the United States. And this year, not one single soybean.
The Trump administration put tariffs on China and they fired right back with a big tariff on, among other things, American soybeans, which basically got the Chinese to now buy the vast majority of their soybeans from Brazil and other South American countries, including now Argentina, a country the Trump administration might be giving a multi-billion-dollar support package.
We've already lost some of the market because of the last tariffs, and we're afraid we'll lose more because of these.
So there's been talk about a possible bailout for soybean farmers, but John tells me what soybean farmers really want is just the ability to sell their products, which they say are the absolute best in the world. They want to sell them at a fair price to as many customers as possible, and that includes selling to China. John says Delaware's 1,000 or so farmers have the highest income per acre of any state in the country, but this soybean trade war is definitely making life harder for them. All American soybean farmers pinning their hopes on the Trump administration figuring this out so they can get their beans back on boats headed to China.
But hopefully, if they can work out an agreement, if you can work out an agreement where they agree to buy so many soybeans, that would be great. That would be the ideal solution.
The trade war didn't just kill demand, it also drove up the cost of nearly everything a farmer needs. The same tariff policies aimed at China also hit steel and other imported parts essential for agricultural equipment. Suddenly, the steel needed to make and fix tractors and combines got more expensive. Tariffs on some key machinery components and equipment jumped, with costs for things like GPS systems, sensors, and hydraulic parts seeing hikes of up to 20 to 30%. The price of just getting parts to fix a planter or harvester ballooned. And it didn't stop there. Key ingredients for fertilizers and herbicides, many of which are imported, were also hit with tariffs. Farmers were now trapped in a devastating economic vice. They were paying a lot more to grow a crop that they were being paid a lot less for. It was an unsustainable equation. The double whammy pushed many to the financial brink. Farm debt, already high, continued to climb. By the end of the first quarter of 2025, Chapter 12 farm bankruptcy filings had already surpassed the total of all of 2024, signaling intensifying financial stress across the Farm Belt. For many, this wasn't just about losing a business, it was about watching a multi-generational family legacy, a way of life, get threatened by policies made in Washington, D.C. With their biggest customer gone and their costs soaring, what could they do?
Escalating trade tensions between the U.S. and China are continuing to impact Iowa soybean farmers. WHO 13's Tidor Mitov joins us in studio with details. Good morning, Tidora.
Kaylin, good morning. Usually by this time of the year, China has purchased around 500 million bushels of soybeans from the United States. But this harvest season, China hasn't purchased a single bushel. China is the world's largest soybean buyer. Without China, the price of U.S. soybeans remains low. This comes as the Trump administration is sending $20 billion in support to Argentina, which is one of the United States' largest competitors in soybean and corn exports. But President Trump has yet to provide U.S. farmers the aid he promised earlier this month, citing the government shutdown as the reason. A sixth-generation soybean farmer in Maxwell tells me the trade tension is an additional challenge to the high cost farmers are facing.
Soybean prices have been trending lower for several years now, and we have very high expenses on the input side as well. That's the whole problem in agriculture. We have a cost squeeze because expenses have not come down, prices have come down over the last couple of years. Now, prices being somewhat similar to what they were with China out of the market now to last year, what I've always said and what we look at is that prices would have been higher by now if it had not been for China not being in the market.
Now, President Trump is expected to meet with Chinese President Xi in about a week. Farmers are hoping there's a resolution to these trade tensions. Kaylin.
As the crisis deepened, the government rolled out massive financial aid packages. During the first trade war, the Trump administration authorized over $23 billion to help farmers offset their losses, with soybean producers getting the biggest share. As the new trade war took hold, bailout packages in the range of $10 to $15 billion were considered. For many farmers, this aid was a lifeline that helped them pay the bills and stay afloat. But many others saw it as a government check to fix a government-created problem. As one farmer put it, the bailouts were like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. What they really wanted wasn't a handout, they wanted their markets back. They wanted to earn a living through trade, not aid. Meanwhile, China wasn't waiting. It accelerated a shift that had already begun, turning decisively to Brazil. With the help of Chinese investment, Brazilian farmers expanded production, clearing land to plant more soy. Brazil quickly cemented its place as the world's largest soybean producer and China's main supplier. By the first half of 2025, it was estimated that Brazil supplied nearly 70% of China's soybean imports, and in some peak months, that share surged to nearly 90%. This might be the deepest scar of the trade war. Even if the tariffs vanish tomorrow, the global trade map has been redrawn. The U.S. lost its status as the most reliable supplier. American farmers, who spent decades building trust with their biggest customer, now face the tough reality that a huge piece of that market may be gone for good. The story of the American soybean farmer is a powerful, sobering lesson in how global economic policies affect real people. To see more of this kind of reporting, make sure you subscribe to The Spin Cycle. The trade war was launched with the goal of putting America first, but for farmers on the front lines, it often felt like they were being put last. They were caught in the crossfire of a battle they didn't start, and they're the ones left dealing with the fallout. Even as some trade tensions ease, the consequences linger. The aid programs, while helpful for some, have created a bigger dependency on government support. And most importantly, the trust that once formed the bedrock of the world's most important agricultural trade relationship has been broken. For the farmers in their fields, the trade war isn't over. It lives on in the overflowing grain bins, in the higher costs of parts and fertilizer, and in the gnawing uncertainty they feel every time they put a seed in the ground. They planted the crop, they did the work, but they are still waiting and wondering if the harvest will ever truly be the same again.